going into Beyond the Spider-Verse. Um, yeah, it's gonna be cool seeing the finally getting the resolution to the story. There were behind the scenes problems with Sony and their deal with the artists working on it, so the movie was delayed, and there was talk that it might never be made. So it's great to hear that they're finally work something out and finally getting the movie. Um, but this is obviously in 2027, just to jump ahead a bit. But I figured since I was on the Spider-Man topic, um, yeah, so we're gonna, see the Spot and all his reach across the multiverse. You gotta catch up with the Spider Society dealing with all the canon events going wrong. Um, we get to see the Prowler version of Miles more. I guess the one of the big things I wanted to talk about is the name of the movie, Beyond the Spider-Verse, because that's something that really stood out to me and really made me question like what direction they're going with this. Because uh yeah, I just didn't understand, and I don't think it's been talked about yet exactly why it's called that. So, my initial idea was like, did they actually reach a deal with Marvel to include Marvel owned characters, that they are going beyond just Spider-Man, Spider Society, Spider People, and including all those characters or more of those characters? Um, that would be pretty cool. There might be some truth to that because they are pretty successful movies, so Marvel could have seen that and been like, "Hey, we will help you with those movies because they're awesome, and we'd be happy to be part of that." Um, so there could be some of that aspect. I guess there's some other stuff that kind of points to that direction, but I don't know how significant it is or reliable it is. There was, I guess, some scooper a while ago claiming that Marvel and Sony did reach a deal with the Spider Verse movies, and at some point we were supposed to find out that Miguel, Spider-Man 2099, was actually in partnership with Kang or a variant of Kang. And so that's kind of why the Spider Society is, concerned about canon events and all that stuff, is because they're helping whatever Kang keep control. So I don't know if it was even He Who Remains. Um, yeah, so, but then apparently once the whole Kang storyline in the MCU fell apart, they kind of backed out of that. So again, that was just what someone claiming to be a scooper said, so who knows if it's true or not. And then of course it doesn't seem like it's could be the case right now. Um, so and then something else that I thought could point in this direction, because I was looking through like Easter eggs and everything that I might have missed doing the other watch throughs. And this is like a completely obscure and minor Easter egg, so that's why I say this could mean something, but it also couldn't. Um, is that it was confirmed that one of the villains inside the Spider Society's jail was, I think, Clam, who's a very minor villain in the comics. And I thought it was interesting that that character was there, um, because originally in the comics, when the character made its debut, it was in a Rocket and Groot comic, which I would assume mean it, I think it was a yeah, I think it's a guy in the comics, and the concept art for Clam in the Spider Verse movies is female. But so I would assume he's a Guardians of the Galaxy villain, and therefore he would be owned by Marvel. So it was kind of interesting to see that character in a Sony movie. Um, but I guess I did find out that the main one was in a Rocket and Groot one, and then after that, there was a variant that appeared in a Spider-Man story in a different universe. So there is some Spider-Man connection there. So that's probably where they pulled that reference from. So, but it's still just kind of odd why Sony would have access to a character like that when they own so many already. And then I guess the bigger connection um, would be the Prowler, because obviously we got the Prowler from what seems to be the MCU to have a cameo, which would suggest a partnership. There was concept art for the Prowler that was leaked, and on it, it claims it's the MCU Prowler, but on the other hand, Marvel Studios has yet, as far as I know, to comment on it and say that yes, it is in fact the same exact character. Um, so if it is, then that shows that, you know, Marvel and Sony are both involved in these Spider-Verse movies now. So, you know, expanding into more actual Disney owned Marvel characters could be on the table. Um, I guess the other thing with the clam, I was just going to point out that it's not extremely relevant is apparently the character was supposed to show up in a bar scene in like a post-credit scene or something that I think it was supposed to be the bar with no name and it was just supposed to be full of villains, and I think the Spot was supposed to be in it too, and they would all be making fun of him and everything of his powers. Um, and then that scene that ended up getting deleted, that was actually supposed to tie into the Insomniac's Spider-Man 2, where there's a side mission to collect spider drones and return them to this portal that is obviously from the Spider-Verse movies, and then you give them to the bartender who is Delilah, I want to say. And she would have been the bartender in that scene in the movie too, so it was going to be a more direct connection between the Insomniac universe and the Spider-Verse story. Um, yeah. So I guess that's my like initial theory about the Beyond the Spider-Verse is going beyond Spider People, and going at it with a Marvel character route. But I guess in the other sense, it could potentially just be more of a, I don't know, metaphorical sense or philosophical, however you want to think about it. Like, um, because the Spider Verse and the Spider Society is so focused on the Spider People that does this mean they're going beyond the Spider Verse by taking into consideration the non-spider people? Like right now they're making the multiverse basically out to just be centered around them. Like like the police captains need to die because that helps the spider people, but now you're going beyond the Spider-Verse by saying we can't just focus on ourselves. There are the non-spider people that need to be taken into consideration. So it could just be something like that, I guess. And then, that's the other part, like talking about the Prowler Miles. Um, like he is in a universe where there apparently is no spider person. So is that kind of an aspect of this beyond the Spider-Verse? Is that there are universes out there lacking spider people that, again, they exist in the multiverse, but they're being ignored by the Spider Society? So you know, th- I just thought of those that um, could be more, like I said, um, metaphorically beyond the Spider-Verse. It'll still be heavily spider people focused, but they're taking into consideration more than just them. Um, then yeah, apparently we're supposed to still be getting that female Spider-Verse movie at some point. That was reported on years ago, and very I've heard very little about it over the years. I think just maybe a few months ago they finally said that they were still moving ahead with it. Um, so that'll be cool, just a continuation. Because there was some talk, I've seen some YouTubers claiming that maybe Sony will end this Spider-Man Spider-Verse trilogy and it'll somehow be tied into Secret Wars and their whole reboot, and they'll just end the series, which, you know, I mean, it'd be cool if they were tied in and stuff, which they already are, but I also feel like they could just, I don't know how they do it, ignore Secret Wars. Um, yeah, and just do their own thing. I think it also would just make sense as long as this third one's still successful. Like, I kind of doubt Sony is going to want to go with Disney's plan. That's always been, the just natural problem of their partnership is they are two different companies. They're both out to make a bunch of money. So, how likely is one to follow the other if it hinders, you know, that mission? Um, but yeah, and then I think it was also confirmed we're supposed to be getting a Spider-Punk spin-off movie, so that'll be cool to see. Um, then yeah, like they've talked about before, is Marvel Studios does not have access to Miles right now, and they said that, well, I don't know if it's been 100% confirmed that Marvel Studios is getting access to Miles. I know Sony has said they're more open to a live action version of Miles once the Spider-Verse trilogy is over, so I don't know if that means they're going to work with Marvel Studios to bring Miles to the big screen or if they themselves are going to do their own version of Miles and have their own movies. So yeah, I don't know if that's in regards to the MCU or not. Um, let's see. I think that's all I have about that.